campaign returns, and to get away with it, we need this bill more than ever. We will be supporting it. The Prime Minister is on record as saying that the previous legislation, the existing legislation, is an ass. Well, we think this legislation could be stronger, but we agree that this is probably about covering the one that belongs to Mr Banks.
Called Jami-Lee Ross.
Mr Speaker, I'm pleased to take call on this local electoral amendment bill, and I'm pleased that I'm hearing from the opposition that there is a level of support behind the bill. It does bring about more transparency, it does bring about some changes to the electoral expenditure and donation rules, which are welcome. And, Mr Speaker, I'm looking forward to also hearing back from the Select Committee after they've examined it through the public submissions process. Mr Speaker, I was sitting up in my office and listening to some of the debate, and I heard opposition members talking a little bit about memory loss, and some might call it a crystal set that I was listening to. I call it a television. But, Mr Speaker, if anyone's going to talk about memory loss, then we should talk about those who can't remember who passed the actual legislation that led to the expenditure issues in the 2010 local body elections. Because actually, that legislation was passed in 2001, and it was the Labor Party that was in government in 2001. They have the cheek to try and blame the Super City legislation for the problems that they say arose through the local body elections of 2010. Actually, it had nothing to do with that legislation, because the expenditure and donation legislation they were working under was the 2001 Local Electoral Act. And, Mr Speaker, the other bit of memory loss I'd like to mention is the fact that the other side can't remember that there were two candidates that took large anonymous donations. We don't hear about the second candidate because the second candidate happens to be a Labor Party member. But the second candidate, Mr Len Brown, my good friend from Manukau City, the Mayor of Auckland currently, took $500,000 of anonymous donations as well. It was funnelled through a trust, an anonymous trust, where the public of Auckland knew nothing of this $500,000. If we're going to talk about anonymous donations, if we're going to talk about memory loss, let's talk about the people that can't remember who passed the legislation which led to the issues in the 2010 local body elections. Let's talk about the people who can't remember that there were two candidates that took $500,000 in anonymous donations, one of which happens to be a Labor Party member. Mr Speaker, we don't hear about that from them because they don't want to admit the truth. Mr Speaker, this piece of legislation will resolve many of those issues. This piece of legislation will tidy up the donation problems of the 2010 local body elections. I look forward to it being passed, and I look forward to some more constructive comments coming through in the second and third reading debates from the opposition.
Order. Order. Members. Order. Members, this debate is concluded. The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it.
Local Electoral Amendment Bill number 2, first reading.
The question is that the Local Electoral Amendment Bill number 2 be considered by the Justice and Electoral Committee. Those of that opinion will say aye. Aye. Contrary, no. The ayes have it.
Mr Speaker.
The Honourable David Carter.
Mr Speaker, I move that the Local Electoral Amendment Bill number 2 be reported to the House by 11 March 2013.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. Call on Government Order